Previously on Midnight Chimes.
Well, I guess that explains his callous behaviour toward her earlier on, but it's still a weird and out-of-character prejudice for the Doctor to have, especially when he admits himself that she has good qualities, like kindness and bravery. I sure do hope this thread doesn't get picked up on again in a later episode now that Clara is dating a soldier. That was foreshadowing, in case you weren't aware. Well, I guess I can't put this off any longer. It's time to discuss the Caretaker. Remember last time we talked about how Time Heist actually has quite a lot going for it in spite of its flaws? Well, the same cannot be said this time around. The Caretaker is rotten through and has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. When it comes to poorly written fiction, it usually falls roughly into one of three categories. Firstly, you have those stories which are fascinatingly bad, filled to the brim with baffling, incomprehensible artistic decisions which leave you wondering what on earth was going on in the writer's head. A good example of this from Series 8 would be In the Forest of the Night, an episode that is memorable for all of the wrong reasons. Why are there no people in the centre of London? Why is there so much appalling child acting? Why is all this happening in the middle of the day when the poem the episode is inspired by and which is referenced in the title takes place at night? Why is the Doctor saying we shouldn't medicate kids? Okay, that last one is pretty toxic, and if this were any other episode it would be a serious black mark, but in the context of everything else going on it just kind of adds to the whole glorious flaming dumpster fire. Next up you have bad writing that is just boring and unengaging. Not much to say here really, just think of your typical Chibnall episode. Then lastly, and at the very bottom of the pile, are stories that are offensively bad, either because they insult the audience's intelligence, contain toxic moral implications, or they butcher one or more characters. The Caretaker manages to satisfy all three of the above criteria and as such falls firmly into this category. And I've been stalling for long enough now, so let's actually dive into this garbage. We open up with a montage establishing what is going to be the main conflict of the episode, as Clara struggles to balance her adventures with the Doctor and her more mundane interactions with Danny Pink. These two parts of her life are about to collide in dramatic fashion when the Doctor takes a job as a caretaker at Coal Hill School. Yeah, it's another Doctor tries to blend in as an ordinary human and hilarity ensues type scenario, a gimmick that was already growing stale the last two times Gareth Roberts made use of it. Fortunately, the deep cover element of the plot doesn't get too much focus in the episode, although all things considered I think I'd rather have had 40 minutes of that than what we got instead. The main threat of the episode revolves around a deadly robot called the Scovox Blitzer, which the Doctor has to stop before it destroys the planet. I won't delve into this too much as it's really just a superficial framing device, but I will say the rather goofy appearance of the robot and how the chase sequences with it are choreographed seems tonally at odds with the overall more serious drama going on in this episode. I'm not saying you shouldn't have lighter moments in a serious story, but there's a precise art to it, and the way it's handled here, it's like the episode just can't ever decide what it wants to be. A good example of what I mean is the elaborate narrative Clara constructs in order to try and explain away what Danny has just witnessed with her and the Doctor. Apart from this being an unfunny joke that goes on for way too long to begin with, it's completely jarring and out of place, coming right in the middle of what should be a heavy dramatic moment as Danny discovers what Clara has been concealing from him. Speaking of which, Clara doesn't come off very well at all in this episode. Arguably it's understandable that she hasn't told Danny the truth up until this point, because you know, your friend being an alien and having a time travel machine which you go around the universe fighting monsters in isn't exactly the easiest thing to explain to a loved one, but even after Danny has witnessed the Doctor and Clara together, she still initially tries to cover it up in a way that is very patronising to Danny. The fact she is so readily prepared to lie to him in this manner, coupled with how awkward they are around each other and how little chemistry they seem to share in general, makes it very hard to have much investment in their relationship, which is significant given how the finale leans so heavily on us being emotionally invested in them as a couple, but more on that when we get there. Now, if Clara doesn't come across as very sympathetic in this episode, then the Doctor is another level entirely. From the moment the Doctor first meets Danny, he takes an instant disliking to him, seemingly for no apparent reason other than because he used to be a soldier. He then proceeds to mock and belittle Danny at every single opportunity, calling him a PE teacher and viciously berating him for interfering with the generators, even though he had no way to know that they were important. This is just full-on character assassination. The Doctor is not a bully. I mean, okay, they may have behaved in a similar similar manner towards Mickey and Adam back in Series 1, but then the Doctor's whole arc in that series was basically about them not really being themselves, and in any case it was never as venomous and unprovoked as this. Although the Doctor does sort of come round and develop some respect for Danny by the end of the runtime, the fact that he even has such a strong prejudice in the first place just does not sit right with me at all. In JX's 5-hour-long epic, they talk about the core traits of the Doctor's character that should always remain consistent throughout their incarnations. And for me, one of those core traits is that they will always see the good and potential in individuals regardless of their race, culture, background, ethnicity, social status, and so on. Let's not forget how the Doctor once took on board a primitive, knife-wielding tribal warrior as a companion because they saw someone who is intelligent and willing to learn. That's what Doctor Who is all about, and why I believe it has such a strong universal appeal for so many. Sure, the Doctor may disapprove of violence, but that doesn't mean that they will automatically dislike anyone who is or has ever been a soldier. The version of the character presented in The Caretaker would never have had Leela as a companion, and honestly that's just sad. What makes it worse is how the Doctor reacts once he finds out Danny is the one Clara is dating, as he goes on a tirade about him being a boyfriend mistake and even demands that she explain herself to him. I'm sorry, but at what point did the Doctor become an abusive, possessive piece of garbage who dictates other people's life choices? Also, am I the only one who finds it kind of uncomfortable how he's okay with Clara dating a Matt Smith lookalike but disapproves once he finds out she's dating a black man? The optics of that just seem a little too real, and I'm curious to hear what others think about it. Overall, The Caretaker is a tonally inconsistent mess which manages to assassinate multiple characters. And look, I'm not just hating on this because it's Gareth Roberts. I already thought this episode was garbage long before he came out as a transphobe, though I must admit the fact it's written by a scumbag is just the icing on the cake. In any case, I can say without a hint of hyperbole that not only is The Caretaker the low point of Series 8, but quite possibly the worst Doctor Who story of all time. I'm Midnight Chimes, and I travel in time and space. And trains.